Okay, so we all know that most people relapse. And specifically, relapse is inevitable if you're not living the principles in all your affairs, if you're not living an honest life, if you're not doing the next right thing, if you're not cleaning up the wreckage of your past. And I've got a story of a guy that I know. I'm going to call him Joe. So Joe got sober, gosh, probably about 3 years ago. And I remember when Joe came in, Joe was broken. Joe was broken, but Joe owns a business. Joe's successful. So financially, Joe's doing okay. He's married. He has a couple of kids. He has a successful business. However, he couldn't stop drinking. He was a freaking disaster. So he ends up going to treatment. He ends up going to IOP. And I'm also going to speak to following through with your program. So Joe goes to treatment, goes to IOP, doesn't finish IOP because he's good, right? Oh, I'm good. I got this. I don't need to finish IOP. And then he ends up coming to AA, and that's where I meet Joe, is at AA. And I remember watching him, and he was just broken. Him and a friend of his came into AA together. And I remember him coming to meetings, and he never got a sponsor. He never worked this. He was showing up to meetings. He actually got pretty vulnerable at meetings too. I remember that. But he'd come to meetings, and he was doing some of the things, which, hey, nobody works a perfect program. You don't have to work a perfect program. However, you gotta work the steps. Like, you have to do the work. And even if you're not if you're in AA, CA, NA, any of the 12-step groups, or even if you're not in a 12-step group, like, you have to do the work. And he didn't do the work. Like, he didn't get a sponsor. So he's a pretty smart guy, again, successful in business. So he's like, there's no need for him to get a sponsor. He doesn't really respect anybody else enough to take suggestions, really. And that's one of the big things, is that, in my experience, people that get clean and sober are willing to take suggestions and willing to do what someone else is telling them to do. Like, for example, Tim needs to listen to somebody besides Tim. And it's not because Tim's not smart. It's because Tim needs somebody besides Tim, somebody outside of Tim, telling Tim what to do. Okay, so Joe doesn't get a sponsor, doesn't work the steps. He's not doing service work that I'm aware of, or that I saw anyways. And he was married. And I remember hearing him, and he was having some issues at home, having some issues with his wife. And she didn't live here. She lived somewhere else. She lived in another state, actually. So he was here in Arizona. He was in Scottsdale. She was living in a different state. And I remember, just in hearing him and listening to him, next thing I know, I find out. So apparently he finds a girl on Seeking Arrangements. Seeking Arrangements is like, sugardaddy.com. It's basically where you find a hooker. And so he finds this hooker on Seeking Arrangements, which he can say it's his girlfriend because he found whatever. It's not really online dating. What it is it's a hooker. So he gets a hooker. And again, I know this guy. And I mean, like, hey, I like him. He's a good guy. However, he's got the sickness. He's got the alcoholic behavior. Alcoholic behavior doesn't mean that you're drinking. And a lot of people think, like, I came to AA to stop drinking. Lots of people come to AA to stop drinking. But really, in order to stop drinking long term, you have to change your thinking. You've got to change the way that you're living. And that's AA is a program to teach you how to start living an honest life, living the principles in all my affairs. If I'm not living the principles in all my affairs, just based upon what I saw with Joe, he's just one example of someone who's, it's the lying, cheating, and stealing. It's seeking, it's chasing the solution. It's chasing something to make you feel better. So he finds a hooker, and he's hanging out with this hooker, and he's got his wife. His wife lives in a different state, and his wife finds I think she finds like a condom or something like that in the trash can, and he blames it on his employee. He's like, oh yeah, my John was here, and he had a girl here, and so his wife, she's no idiot, so she puts a camera up in the house, and guess what she finds on the camera? Of course, the hooker comes over and she sees him and the hooker, and they're doing things that he shouldn't be doing because he's married. So he ends up getting divorced. She leaves him, and now he's still. And then the hooker becomes his girlfriend. The hooker becomes his girlfriend, and I'm just like, I'm over here going, oh man, and so whatever. Hey, it's none of my business, right? Like, he's still, like, we're all sick, and some are sicker than others, and just me on the outside, I can see like this happening. There's no way he's happy. There's no way he's living a happy life. He's got this girlfriend that's a hooker, and she's around, and I mean, he's still doing the things that he's doing because he's also a compulsive gambler. And so he's going to Vegas. He's flying to Vegas to gamble, not like $100 or $200. He's gambling like, thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars, like a lot of money, which is like, gambling is an addiction too. Gambling, sex addiction, drinking, and alcoholism. I've seen it happen a lot of times. If someone gets clean, and I've seen lots of guys, lots of guys and girls, you get clean and sober, and typically the tendency guys is to go to sex and gambling, and women is to go to food and love addiction. So that's kind of what ends up happening when people if they're not actually like working a program. And that's why it's always recommended to finish your treatment program, finish your IOP, continue seeing a therapist, get a sponsor, work the steps, be of service, get outside of yourself. There's all these things that we've got to do to, I guess, continue doing the work. And I mean, shoot, I know I go through difficult times in my life too, but I'm grateful that I actually have done the work. And so I just, not to talk about me. However, I just am getting out of a relationship, and it's difficult. It's difficult. And it might, if I wasn't doing the work, and if I didn't have the support and my sponsor and people around me to give me the guidance and the support and to help me, then I don't know, maybe I'd be seeking the solution too. Maybe I'd be seeking, the drink, the drug, the gambling, the sex. Those are the things, those are the solution. The addiction is the solution. So why the pain? And being able to work through the pain is gonna be the only way, or doing the work, living the principles in all your affairs. And if what happens is, if you're not living the principles in all your affairs, if you're still cheating on your wife, if you're not seeking advice, seeking direction, you don't do the work, you don't go through the amends process, learning how to, like, doing your inventory, cleaning up the wreckage of your past, and learning how to not continue to create more wreckage. My experience, those are the people that relapse. And when Joe relapsed, it's like, and so he recently relapsed, and a bunch came out. He goes on this trip. He ends up finding another hooker and cheats on his hooker with another hooker, and she finds out, and then it blows up. And then she tells all of his friends that he's been using. So Joe, underneath all of it, he's using. He's showing up to meetings. He's lying. And there's a lot of people that do this. They show up to meetings and they're really not clean and sober. And if you're showing up to meetings and you're not doing the work, eventually you're going to relapse. So when I found out that Joe relapsed, I was like, of course he relapsed. I mean, I feel for him. I wish he didn't relapse. However, it's obvious. Of course he relapsed. Of course he relapsed, because he wasn't doing the work. He wasn't doing the work. And that's what happens when someone doesn't do the work. Someone doesn't do the work. Of course, if he's still not honest, cheating on his wife, cheating on his hooker girlfriend, Like, of course he's going to relapse. When people relapse, 9 times out of, probably 10 times out of 10, of course he relapsed. Of course she relapsed. You just look at his or her behavior. That's going to lead to a relapse. And when people stay clean and sober, when they're doing all the things, right? And the things means going to meetings, working the steps, being of service, getting outside of myself, doing other work besides AA. So AA is one thing that I do. I do lots of other things that are complements to my recovery. And when I'm doing all of the things, like, I'm good. I'm happy, joyous, and free. We all want to feel good now. Like, that's the goal, the dream. The dream is to feel good now and to continue feeling better. And I know if I want to feel good now, I'm going to have to do the next right thing. I got to be honest. I've got to, I have to be an honest person, live an honest life, do the next right thing, not create wreckage. Because I know if I create wreckage, I mean, even something simple as lying on my Amazon return. I want to return this because it's damaged, even though it's not damaged. I just don't want to pay for the shipping. Like, I've caught myself doing that. And I know that even though I might not drink or drug over that one little thing, the little thing, it's like the crack in the Hoover Dam. The crack leads to something bigger, leads to something bigger, leads to something bigger, leads to the full-blown relapse, which is not what I want in my life. I'm so grateful for my life today and everything in my life and the relationships in my life and the people that I attract into my life. I don't ever want to give that away. So I'm here to say, if you want to stay clean and sober, you got to do the work. You got to live the principles in all your affairs. You got to be an honest person. That's my experience anyways. The people that are full of shit, the people that constantly lie, the people that cheat, the people that steal, that just leads to feeling restless, irritable, and discontent. And eventually, and it might not be today or tomorrow or even next week or the week after, but eventually, and it might not be for a couple years, but eventually you're going to relapse if you're not living a clean life. That's been my experience. And tune in to the next video. If you found this video to be of value, be sure to like it, subscribe to our channel if you want to see more videos, leave a comment if you have a question, if you've got something to say. Camelback Recovery provides treatment services for people struggling with mental health, mental illness, addiction, alcoholism. So if you or someone you know is struggling, be sure to reach out to us. You can go to our website, 𝐾amelbackrecovery.com, or our information is in the comments section below. And we provide everything from detox, inpatient, outpatient treatment, sober living, recovery coaching, sober companion services. So either we'll be able to help you or we'll be able to refer you to people or treatment centers that might be a better fit. So I will see you in the next video.